Hi and welcome to Fantasy Footy Fan, Jeff here. Hopefully you had a good round. As you can see with my team, not so much, but I was planning for a bad round this round because I did have 3 premiums out. So I scored an 1848, so my round rank was 42,530, so not great. My season rank went down by 4,160 spots. And my overall rank is 10,902. I'm not overly disappointed with that coming up to round 4. So, yeah, it's okay. Like I said, I've said before, I really am trading for the season. We can trade for the early buys, but when I'm making my trades, I'm really thinking about more the season. Having said that, I definitely made some errors this round, and I've always said from the start that you need to back your research and back your gut and have a plan and follow that plan through. And in this round, I didn't do that. And it's a lesson for me to learn. No matter how long you've been playing this game, you can still be reactionary. You can still not follow your plan in the way that you normally trade. And that's what I've done this round, and I'll explain exactly what happened. So the trade I actually made is I traded Grundy and I brought Jackson in to my ruck from my forward, and I traded in Tom Powell. And I was okay with that trade. I was initially going to trade in Sherry, but I thought with Tom Powell, I loved his role. He's got the job security. He's averaging 105 even with that 92 that he got this round. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think he'll do well, and he was a lot cheaper than Sherry. So I thought, yep, I'll go that, and then then maybe trade Jordan at some point and bring Jackson back into the forward line. Maybe bring in an English or someone like that in time. So, but again, that I'm not really thinking that far ahead. But for now, that's the trade I made. Now I had some cash, and I wanted to make 2 other trades. My initial planned trades from round 0 was to trade Powell for Sheasel. But I didn't do that. I traded Young for Sheasel instead. And that was a mistake because even though Young hadn't scored very well, he had the role still. It's just that he was kicking clangers and he had bad disposal efficiency, but he's not going to do that every game. He's actually a good kick. So I should have really hung on to him. And in the end, he of course had a really good score this round. But then, so did Sheasel. As far as a trade for trade goes, Young got 132, Sheasel got 128. I lost 4 points there. But really I could have had, if I traded Powell for Sheasel instead of Young, I could have had Sheasel on the ground instead of Howes. And that would have really helped my score. But, that was a mistake. The other error that I made was my plan was actually to trade Clark, swap him for Wilson, and bring in Dempsey. And that was also an error. I should have just, again, stuck to my original plan because Dempsey ended up actually having a pretty good game. So he got an 86, and he was on the bubble. And I've seen his role, and he's got the job security, whereas with Clark, he's got the good role too, but he's just not playing that well. He scored a 68, which is okay. But yeah, really wanted Dempsey. But in the end, I didn't do that. And in the end, I upgraded Martin for Sarong. And there's 2 mistakes there. First of all, I get back to my team in round 0, or starting with round 1. I had Sarong in my team, and I think I had Butters as well, but definitely Sarong. And at the last minute, because I wanted to bring in Jackson and Heaney, I ended up needing the cash from somewhere, and I took Sarong out and I brought Rosie in. Now, some of you might think, well, yeah, that's okay, that makes sense. Can see why you did that because Rosie's a gun player as well. The only issue with that is that in my research, I didn't feel Rosie had that much upside, whereas I really felt Sarong did. And I really should have just kept with Sarong and taken the cash elsewhere from another player. So Sarong started really well. Martin hasn't started that well, and I've made a mistake trading Martin out because, as I've been saying the last couple of weeks, is that Martin has the role. Again, just like Young, the clangers and disposal efficiency, but that's going to get better. He's going to be better, and in the end, he had a fantastic round, Nick Martin. So you can't really. If you had the patience for you out there, for those of you out there that kept Nick Martin, good on you. That's great, because that's what we're supposed to do, is just sort of back in some of these players that you've selected. And I think with Nick Martin, he ended up scoring. So I was just bringing up his score, like a 136. So yeah, he had a great game. So in the end, I brought in Sarong. As far as that direct transfer to trade to trade goes, Martin got 136, Sarong a 125, lost 11 points there. But at the end of the day, it was the wrong trade. If anything, I really should have just traded Rosie to Sarong and not Martin. But it's very easy to say all these things in hindsight. So those were the 3 trades I made and some of these lessons that I learned. And so overall, as far as the trade for trade goes, I ended up losing 37 points, because even trading Grundy down to Powell, Grundy scored 114, Powell scored a 92. But overall, when I look at these trades, it's basically Young, Martin and Grundy versus Sheasel, Sarong and Powell. And I'm pretty happy with Sheasel, Sarong and Powell moving forward, particularly because, Grundy's going to have his buy in round 5 anyway. Martin I'm going to need to upgrade at some point. Young's a tough one. I think Young's going to be a top 6 defender. And Martin would have gotten that DPP status, which we could have moved him up into defense. So there's pros and cons with that. We'll just have to see how that all plays out. So looking at my captain and vice captain. So I ended up VCing Sarong, but I did have the captaincy on Heaney. And when Sarong got that 125, I thought, let's just play that safe. Normally I like to get a 130 score and back in these players to score well, and Heaney's in good form, and I probably should have kept it on Heaney. Ultimately, I probably should have put it on Gawn. I mean, he's rucking against Soldo, but I just wanted to play that safe with Sarong and take that. And look, a 125, I guess you probably would still take that as a VC. Some had Bont and English against West Coast, and you would definitely take that. You were expecting an absolute flogging there, which, as far as the match went, the flogging was there. But as far as what they scored, I mean, Bont only a 110, English a 124, but you're expecting bigger scores from them, and it just didn't happen. So that's sort of what I did, and some of my lessons learned from some of these trades I made, and now it's about looking forward and obviously bringing in some of these players and getting my team all fixed up. So looking at my team here, I've got Dacos, Sheasel, Yo, D'Ambrosio, Williams and Howes. So obviously I'm going to bring in Powell for Howes. A bit disappointed obviously with Howes, but he's still going to be the emergency. And I've got Hoare there on my bench as well, but obviously with May probably coming back, and also Lever. Actually, I can't remember. So I did watch some of this game, but so Jake Lever, did play, but May will be coming back. So how that affects Hoare's role, I'm not sure. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, we need some cash from our rookie bench. Hopefully like a Schoenmaker or someone like that in our defense plays. We're looking out for, I think, is it Carl Warner for Fremantle when he comes back from concussion and plays. But yeah, we do need that rookie in defense. So with my mids, so this feels great just to bring on Green and probably for Carroll, and then Miller for Sharp. And yeah, I'd definitely take put the emergency. It'll be on Carroll or Sharp. They're playing against each other this week, so both averaging the same. But yeah, I'll put it on for Sharp for now, but that may change. And then with the rucks, I'll bring Gawn back on, and I'll probably bring Sexton on for Wilson, who was really disappointing. Maybe Cadman as the emergency, playing against West Coast. And then, yeah, we'll probably discuss the captains and vice captains next week. At the end of this video. Looking at the projections, though, it looks like Heaney's got a projection of 147. I don't really pay attention too much to these projections. You got to, play the ball on its merits, as they say. So we'll have a look at what players are playing against what team. It's always good to have a look at who's playing West Coast. I think this year, with all due respect to the West Coast supporters, but they are a team that doesn't have a strong. They don't have a strong team, but don't have a strong midfield as well. So a Heaney, for example, I might as well just talk about the captains and vice captains now, I guess. But Heaney could be a good option, and again, you're going with probably captaining Green, maybe vice captain Heaney might be an option. But if I want a loophole, I've got Livingston as my loophole, who plays for West Coast, so that now makes things difficult. So maybe I might VC probably who would I VC? Probably Gawn. Yeah, it'd have to be Gawn. VC Gawn and probably into Green, I think might be the best option there. So anyway, that's just where my team sits for now, but I want to just quickly go into some of the games and then some of the players to consider. So just starting with Brisbane and Collingwood. So I think Dunkley did okay, 96. I don't think we're really considering him. Again, I only want to talk about the SuperCoach relevant players here, but Lachie Neale scored a 129. So if we have a look at Neale, I think he also scored really well in his previous game too. So he scored a 112 in round 0 and now a 129. So is he back? Is he back to the form of a few years ago? I mean, in this game, he had 35 possessions and 23 of them were handballs, but he had 20 contested, 10 clearances as well. So he had a big game, Lachie Neale. So, he's actually, I didn't get his price. So he's priced at 617. So, is he worth bringing in? Remember, we're not bringing him in to make cash off him. So what he's previously scored and what his break even is doesn't matter. We're bringing him in because of what you think he will score for the rest of the year from now on. So it's the same situation with Sarong last week when I was discussing that. It doesn't really matter what he has scored. The only relevance his previous scores have is that it shows he's in great form, and that if you've been backing him, it shows that your research is justified if you're picking someone like Sarong. So in my case, I really felt he was going to average 115 to 120 this year, Sarong, and that's why I had him in my team right up until the start of round 1. So in bringing Sarong in, it definitely wasn't a reaction to his scores. I really did want to have him in my team. But the mistake was I probably should have traded Rosie for Sarong, because I always wanted to have Martin in my team because of the role he had at halfback. So with Neale, he's probably the only relevant player at Brisbane. And I mentioned Dunkley, but yeah, there's nothing really else there I think that's relevant at this stage. For Collingwood, same thing. It's really just Nick Dacos. So his role changed a little bit. Even when you have a look at his CBAs, what do you have? He had only 26% CBAs. So he was touted as playing at halfback anyway for this game. And he still scored a 112, which is pretty good. We know what he can score when he plays exclusively midfield. He had 30 possessions and 22 of them were kicks, and that's what you'd expect when he's playing halfback. And so yeah, it's okay. It's a good comeback from the game that he played before. But if you don't have Nick Dacos, then you're really keeping an eye on him, because he's lost 26k or 27k just recently in this last game. So his break even's 178, and so he's now 601k. So if you don't own Nick Dacos, you're definitely keeping an eye on that. You're keeping an eye on his break even, keeping an eye on when he bottoms out. He's got Hawthorn this week. Now, even though Finn McGuinness was dropped, it's highly likely that they will bring him back just to tag Nick Dacos. Sam Mitchell has indicated that, not that specifically, but has indicated that Finn McGuinness could be brought into a team specifically for a role. And we all know how Nick Dacos has played against Finn in the past, so that's a possibility. So if you don't own Dacos, you're keeping an eye on the Finn McGuinness selection, an eye on that break even, and hopefully, if it all works out for you, Nick Dacos, I guess, gets the tag this week, drops even further, then he's got his bye, and then you pick him up maybe after his bye, or maybe even wait one more game till he really bottoms out before you bring him in. So for those who chose not to bring in Nick Dacos, it looks like it has certainly worked out for you. I started with him, and he started quite well his first few games, a 131, 135, but then no one expected that 54 against St Kilda. That's really hurt Dacos. So yeah, if you haven't got him, fantastic. You're all set up to bring him in when he bottoms out. I was definitely wrong about Finn Macrae. So I've actually been off Finn Macrae since the start, to be honest. I've always said I don't know how they fit him into that team, because you look at that grand final team from last year, and really the only changes from that best 23 really was that Frampton would probably come out of the side. But Frampton's now in for Murphy. And then Ginnivan left, but then Schultz comes in. So there was really no room for Macrae. So he's coming in, and I really thought, based on how the Pies were playing, that he might, and because he was named in the best 22, I thought he'd get more time on the ground. He only played 38%. He still scored a 30, which I guess the point per minute's not bad, but I think we need to wait till he strings up a good few couple of games where he's got high game time and he's playing well. So yeah, if you were considering him as a rookie to bring in later on, then yeah, you got to take those things into consideration. But other than that, there was really no one else in this game that's really relevant for now, that is. And then moving on to North Melbourne and Carlton. So we got some very relevant players, particularly for North Melbourne. So Sheasel just keeps putting up big numbers. He's got that awesome role at halfback, plays a little bit of midfield, but it's predominantly halfback, 130, 113, 128. So I'm really happy that I've got him in my team. He's going to have a great second year, just like Dacos did. Powell was the one that many brought in, and that was justified. He scored a 92. He had 29 possessions, but he handballed a fair bit. 14 of those were handballs. He kicked a goal, which is great. But he had 6 clangers, so he lost 24 points. So he could have actually gotten that ton. But because of those clangers, he just didn't get it. But then looking at the CBAs, he again was really high up with the CBAs, 89% CBAs there for Powell. So you got to be happy with that. And I think it's a justified pick bringing Powell in. And he's not only going to score fairly well, but he's going to make us some cash as well. So we'll be able to upgrade him to a premium forward. And hopefully after round 6 with the DPP changes, hopefully there's some mids that will get forward status, some premium mids anyway. Sherry continues on his way. He scored a 90. He's been a good pick. I have to say I was a little bit concerned how well Sherry would go because there was such a small sample size from him last year. He played only 2 games without Goldstein. But he's proven his worth, and if you started with him, you'd be so happy that you got a Sherry who's averaging better than Grundy, and he's just so much more cheaper. And if you've brought him in as well, he may end up being probably not a keeper. I guess it looks at this stage that Gawn and English will be the two rucks that we want to have by the end of the year. But, Sherry's holding his own at the moment, and his owners would be really happy. Colby McKercher, he continues to make money for us. He scored a 74. I guess the real question is can we still bring these players into our team? They've had one price increase. Is it worth it? I think when you have a look at the rookies that we have, there's certain rookies that are just absolute must-haves, like Matt Roberts, Colby McKercher, even probably Riley Sanders. Like these guys, I guess Carroll and Sharp for their must-haves, but definitely Roberts and McKercher when you look at their roles. So it might be that if you have a look at some other rookies, if there's no good up-and-coming rookies, maybe you bite the bullet and bring in a McKercher if you don't have him, or a Roberts if you don't have them. Well, Roberts is a tough one because he does have the bye coming up, but definitely with McKercher. And even with Roberts, because he's pretty much there for cash, not necessarily for scoring, but it's just an advantage to have him. Like, he scored a 98 this round, to be able to have that score on your field. And that's part of the other strategy that I wanted to have with my team. Because we've got these high scoring rookies in our midfield, I want to take advantage of that. So going the guns and rookies in my midfield, I'm really happy with that. Just the 5 premiums, and then having 3 good rookies on my field. So Roberts, McKercher and Sanders. And then eventually I can do a little bit of swap trading, because Roberts will get DPP status. He'll go into defense. McKercher will go into defense. Sanders can go into the forward line. So I'm really, really happy with, I think, how things might play out with my team from here on in. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But getting back to the game, Zach Fisher, so he's a little bit up and down. So he scored a 70. He's kicking the ball, but he's just not getting enough of it. And it's a bit of a mix, I guess, with him. I'm just bringing up his, what's he at now? So 380. He's only made 1.9k, so he hasn't made much money. He's averaging 73. Breaker even's 47. So if you've got him, you might be holding, but you also might say to yourself, well, his scoring is a little bit too erratic. Maybe I trade him down to a rookie, even a rookie that's had one price increase. Like maybe you don't have a McKercher and you're able to swing it using DPP. That might be a way to go with Fisher. But yeah, he's going to have these up and down scores, I think. Moving on to LDU. So in watching this game, it was clear that Carlton, it was kind of a team tag, I guess you could say, on LDU. And they really put some work into him, particularly in the first half. But then in watching this game, then they sort of eased up a little bit in the second half, and that's when he sort of got more of the ball. He ended up with 27 possessions, but 15 of those were handballs, which wasn't great. He also had 6 clangers as well, so he lost 24 points there. Disposal efficiency could have been a bit better. It was at 70. So LDU is going to be an interesting one, I guess, from here. I guess if you don't own him, he's now got a break even of 173. He's lost 32k now after that game. And so you may be looking at bringing him in, because he scored a 121 and a 105 round 1 and 2. So maybe he's one of those ones that you wait to bottom out and bring in. But I guess for me, I'm holding. I don't want to do any sideways trading. LDU's a player that I had marked in from the moment that SuperCoach opened. I've wanted him. Ultimately, my starting 5 premiums in my midfield I really wanted was Sarong, Green, LDU, Butters and Miller. That's who I really wanted. So I may sideways trade Rosie. The other one that I would have loved to start with that was 6th on that list was Jack Steele. They were the ones I were considering. Maybe I go Rosie to Butters, maybe I go Rosie to Steele, maybe I just don't do anything because it is a sideways trade, which is very, it doesn't sit well with me. I don't like doing those kinds of trades. I did it with Sheasel, from Young to Sheasel, so I'm not a fan of it. It was a mistake I made, but I don't know. For the rest of the year, looking at my midfield and seeing a Butters or a Steele there instead of Rosie, it just makes me feel better. It sits well with all my preseason research as well. But moving on, if you've got Lazaro, he got a 64, so you're probably holding on to him. His break even is -8, so you still make a little bit of cash. And he actually played really well. When because he came on and played a little bit through the midfield, and when he did, he was a real spark in there. So I think Clarkson would have liked that. And then Dersma only got a 29, so that's a little bit disappointing because I think he had a pretty decent score the game before. So a 71, 53, yeah, and now 29. So yeah, his break even's 40. So now if you got him, maybe you give him one more week and see how he goes, but it looks like he's maxing out. And then Toby Pink. So some brought in Toby Pink. I was never a fan of bringing him in. I know he scored decently in the previous game where he scored a 58, and I know we're desperate for defenders, but he's going to be a slow burn. He's going to have these games like this. So I didn't really want to waste a trade on bringing him in. I'm really hoping they bring in Schoenmaker. He's had some really good games in the VFL. I didn't see this week's game, but last week's game was a really good one. But moving on to Carlton, and it's interesting with, I don't know if many are going to trade him in, but Elijah Hollands, he has had a great game here, a 116. They are using him. I think he's definitely got that job security. And in looking at his role, just having a quick look to see. So he didn't get any CBAs. He's playing it. Oh, well, he did actually. He only got, I think, a couple because he only got 5% CBAs. So he must have got one or two. But played half forward and did really well. It was against North Melbourne as well. So let's see how he goes next week, see if he's worth it. And then moving on, there wasn't really anyone else. Zach Williams got a 70, so you got to be happy with that if you own him. Do you bring him in if you don't have him? He's let's have a look at him. So he's gone up 32k, break evens 21. If you're desperate for a defender that'll make a little bit of money, maybe you still bring him in at 248k. Jack Carroll, really happy with Jack Carroll actually. If you have a look at his CBAs, he got like 46% CBAs. So you got to be happy with that. He's had 75% game time for 65 points. Kicked the goal as well. Had a few clangers, so he lost 20 points in clangers. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that 65, and I think he's going to make us a fair bit of cash. And that's probably it. I don't think there's really anybody else anyone else that I'm really considering for, or that I think is SuperCoach relevant. Fremantle and Adelaide. So Hayden Young, as we said, 132 points, and he was playing predominantly through that midfield. So he had 71% CBAs. So in watching this game, there's so many times where you just see Hayden Young streaming through the middle of the ground, and it looked great. And you had 12 contested possessions. Just played a really good game. So what do we do now with Young? Like, if we've traded him out, and now we're a little bit sort of envious of or jealous that of others who are benefiting of who held him. He only lost, so he's lost 16k. Break even's 97. Do you trade him out and then bring him back in? I guess you'd kind of feel like, oh, what a waste if you did that. But what if he goes on a tear and averages, 120, 130 from here on in? We're going to feel, pretty cheated on that, or just obviously pretty gutted because we've made a bad decision. But we'll see how things play out with Hayden Young. I don't think I'm bringing him back in, but if he's going to be a top 6 defender, if you feel that he's going to be a top 6 defender, then maybe he's one that's that we have to bring in. Maybe earlier than better before his price goes up. Luke Ryan. So unexpected with Luke Ryan. He's now scored a 165, a 127, and a 130. If you started with him, you are so happy with that. You just didn't look. He does put up big numbers, but I just didn't expect this kind of an average from Ryan. So he's what's he worth now? I think it was 622, maybe. I think I saw 644 is he's worth now. So I think that. Yeah, he's out of reach. Same with Sarong. So Sarong's gone up now to 658k. So, if you want Sarong, I think you just have to wait till, maybe he has a bad game or an injury or something and then drops down. Jordan Clark is that other one. So he's only 2% owned. But, that's a 108, a 119, and a 119 from him. So if you've jumped on him, that's, you've done really well there. There was some talk about Jordan Clark's role in the preseason, but it just looked like no one jumped on him. 2% owned. So, but he's averaging really well. You could still bring him in. He's 498k, under that 500k mark. If you want to bring in a defender, he might be an option. Luke Jackson, so he got a 98. We're hoping for a bit more after his 178 last week, but you'll take a 98 because his break even's 57. Obviously, you're not bringing him in, but for his owners, it's pretty good. Andrew Brayshaw got 97. Hoping for a bit more from him. Jeremy Sharp, a 71. You're pretty happy with that. He's now worth 184, negative 28 break even, so he's going to keep making cash. Nat 5. So with Nat 5, we're a little bit worried there for a while with his score, but he ended up. Look, you can't knock him. Like, I know we're all worried about him getting injured and this and that and not scoring, but he had 21 possessions. It's just that 15 of those were handballs, which is not great. But he had 11 contested possessions and 9 clearances. So, he's playing midfield, and he's actually doing it really well. Like, a 64% CBAs. So, it's legit. Like, he's in there. He's scored a 69. His break even's 45. He's averaging 80. Let's hope he can pull out another 100 score to just make us that little bit more cash, so then we can upgrade him, hold him till the DPPs drop in after round 6, and who knows, we could upgrade him to a premium. And that's probably it. And then for the Crows, Matt Crouch continues just to do awesome things. Like, he's in great form. So that's now a 114, 128, 110. If you jumped on him from the start, you'd be pretty happy with that. I think it's a bit late to bring him in now. But yeah, he had a great game. Chris Burgess, I don't know how many started with him. He's a rook, forward rook. It's only 2% owned, so probably not many started with him, but that's a 34, 54, 72. Nice little upward trend, negative 29 break even, but I don't think you're bringing him in. And then Jordan Dawson. So with Jordan Dawson, let's having a look at this game. Now, he had 27 possessions and 19 of those were kicks. So that's great. 5 tackles. That's great as well. 8 contested possessions. So that's decent. And 4 clearances. He had 7 clangers. So he lost 28 points just in clangers there. So that's affected his score. But even worse, 48% disposal efficiency. So this is why his scores have been terrible, Jordan Dawson. He's getting the ball, and he's normally a good kick, but he's disposing of the ball for whatever reason is just really bad. So for ones like myself who don't have him, I've got my eye really close on him. He's a 174 break even. He's lost 57k. He'll lose, again, more money. He is a premium, elite premium. So if we can get a Jordan Dawson for around 550, that's fantastic if we could do that. So I've got my eye on him because he'll come good. He's got the role and all of that, and he'll come good. It's just that, at the moment, his disposal efficiency is just not the best, but that will pick up. And then when he bottoms out and he gets back to that good form, that's when I'll pounce, when he bottoms out. And then for the rest of Adelaide, not really much else there. For Essendon and St Kilda, so again, as I mentioned, Nick Martin, 44 disposals, 31 of those were kicks, 8 marks. As you can see, I'm pretty flat saying these stats because I had him and traded him to Sarong. Yeah, I'm happy with Sarong, but really I should have kept Martin because I've been telling all of you to keep Nick Martin and to hold on, and then I end up upgrading him. It was just a bad mistake on my behalf. Should have gone Rosie to Sarong. But it's just the way it is. That's what's happened. And if you've got Nick Martin, just celebrate that. He's going to be great this year. Might get the occasional sort of average score, but for the most part, he will do very well. If you own Zach Merritt, you're laughing as well. 131, just an absolute gun. And then looking through the rest of the team, there's not much else there really to talk about. And then for the Saints, so Jack Steele, I think he is back to his best. And you knew straight away that he was, because when Jack Steele is playing well, he is tackling and getting contested possessions. That's how you know he's playing well, and he's playing with no injuries. 119, 120, 126. Those are his 3 games he's played. He went up 28k. He's only 557k. I think if you're going to get him, look, I think anything over 550 is not necessarily value, but for a player like Jack Steele, the form he's in, like in that 126, he had 29 possessions. Unfortunately, 18 were handballs, but he had 10 contested possessions, 7 tackles. So, it's all there. So if you own him, he's obviously a keeper, and he will be an elite mid by the end of the year. But I might be looking at getting him in. I might do the Rosie to Steele. I don't know. Got to think about that. So Riley Bonner was the other one. Now, last week I did say that with Sinclair in the team, that I wasn't sure about Bonner, and he didn't have a great game. But in this game, he was fantastic. 32 possessions, and 29 of those were kicks, and 9 marks as well. So and he scored a 104. So you're really happy if you did bring him in. And just having a look at the St Kilda, sorry, just bringing up the CBAs for this match. Looking at the CBAs for St Kilda, so Windhager ended up playing mostly in that midfield. So Sinclair, actually, I thought Sinclair might have actually got more CBAs than that, but he didn't. So looks like that role is legit for Bonner. I do think that you might get some erratic scoring, so a bit of up and down scoring from Bonner. But I still don't know if I would bring him in personally. Break even 34. He's gone up 42k. So if you brought him in before that jump, then you're pretty happy with that. Let him earn some money, and then you can upgrade him. Wanganeen Malira, he came back as he did not look good at all. Not did not look good, but he just wasn't scoring well at the start. But then he came back really well and ended up with a 91. And so you'd be happy with that. Sinclair's the one to keep an eye on. So that's another low score for him. He scored an 89. So you're definitely not bringing him in, because that's a 78 and an 89 from him. His break even's 175. So he's one of those ones where you're going to wait till he bottoms out and then look at bringing him in, because he'll get back to his scoring from last year. But we just have to wait till that picks up with him. Rowan Marshall, a 79. So it's not great, especially for owners who started with him. So he's lost 24k. He's got a break even of 167. So he started well, 127, then down to a 106, which is kind of okay, but now a 79. So but if you've got him, he's a premium ruck, so you hold. But if you don't, you're just keeping an eye on Marshall. But he's still had a good game. He's like 20 possessions and 27 hitouts and 12 contested possessions. The problem with Marshall in this game, this is crazy. He had 14 clangers. 14. That's ridiculous. That's like what do you guess? That 56 is it? 56. I think 56 points he lost in points in clangers. 56. So can you imagine if he didn't have all those clangers? He also had 50% disposal efficiency. So now when you look at all these stats, it presents a picture, doesn't it? You know, that 79 is not an accurate reflection of obviously the player that he is. It's just a score where he just, for whatever reason, didn't really kick well or handball well. So, you know, yeah, so you wouldn't have to worry too much if you're an owner. He's better than that. Winhager did well last week, but was expecting more this week. You know, he had 74% CBAs, but he only scored a 54. Again, with him, disposal efficiency was 55%, 4 clangers, so that all doesn't help either. And 11 handballs of the 18 possessions he had. And yeah, we did have that rookie as well, Angus Hasty, I think it is, but yeah, he didn't do anything. So moving on to the next game, Port and Melbourne. What do we got here? So looking at Port and Melbourne, so again, I was keeping an eye on this game, and you know, Rosie only scored that 102. I was pretty disappointed with that. Disposal efficiency wasn't the best. Butters as well, for Butters' own, especially after the way Butters has started. So it's a 98 from him as well. So a lot of his were handballs, like 16 handballs out of the 26 possessions. That's what's affected his score. Ollie Wines, another 96 from him, and he's doing okay-ish. You know, 50% CBAs will be interesting to see if Horn Francis is back this week, how that affects Wines. And he's owned by 11% of teams, so that's a decent amount. Went up 10k, break even of 77. If he can get to over 500k, that's going to really help his owners. But you're definitely going to have to upgrade, obviously, from him to a premium. But hopefully he can still keep averaging that, you know, 95 to 100 mark. And then for the rest of the Port players, nothing really else there. But obviously Max Gawn was the real talking point this week, as you know, he had the monster 177 score, just dominated Soldo. Although Soldo scored a 112 in SuperCoach, so that's not too bad. But Gawn 177, he had 50 hitouts, kicked a goal, 14 contested possessions, and even though he had 6 clangers, he just had so much of the ball, and so you know, and all the hitouts and hitouts to advantage and all those things. So a 177, you're going to be pretty happy. And the only real talking point here was, did you captain him? And if you did, you're laughing. It would have really helped your score. Then Petrarca a 97. I don't know how many own Petrarca. So 19%. Okay, so you know, his average is still 117. He will average 120 to 125 this year, Petrarca, I think. So if you own him, you write out these scores. And then Clayton Oliver. So again, as I mentioned before, you keep your eye on these underperforming premiums, because he's lost 84k now altogether, and his break even's 164. He's down to 589. He's averaging 92, but he's so much better than that. Now he got only 25 possessions, kicked a goal, but his disposal efficiency was 52%. So that's what really affected him. But you just keep your eye, because at some point things are going to click for him. And when they do, that's when you want to jump on, because hopefully he would have bottomed out by then, maybe after his buy in round 6. And then for the rest of the Ds, so yeah, a Windsor, 56 points. Yep. So okay, if you own him, I guess you stick with it. Hopefully he continues to make some money. Break even of 37. He's made 52k already. And then the same with Hall. Like, you know, Hall got a 52, break even of 21. He's gone up 24k. I'm just really hoping he can keep playing. I get the feeling that his time's limited there, and even if in the seniors, and even if he does play, he's not really scoring. So I'll be looking at getting him out when a good defender rook comes in. Yeah, Howes was the disappointing one. Even Billings as well. See, this is what's going to happen with Billings. Like, everyone jumped on Billings. He's just going to have these games where it's going to be a little bit up and down. So he was subbed out, only 58% game time, had 42 points. So like you look at his score, it's very erratic. And so his break even 64. He's gone up 62k overall, so that's still decent. I mean, with these players, you want to make 150k. That's what you really want when you're bringing in these sort of low-end mid-prices and rookies. So hopefully for Billings owners, he gets more game time and scores better. Howes was disappointing. So, he played 72% game time, but only scored 26 points. So, look, he's made 91k overall. His break even's 30. So he could still get to that 150k. And that's what we're all hoping for, everyone who owns him. 62% owners. It's a lot of us. So, yeah, we're really hoping he can just continue to make more money. So the Doggies in the West Coast game. So we've got Tim English scored a 124. To be honest, as I said earlier, we were expecting more from English and Bontempelli playing against West Coast, but a 124 from him. So I just want to quickly check his... So look, so far he's lost 13k, break even of 140. So he's really just... He's getting his break even. You're not waiting for him to drop. I think you're just gonna have to pay top dollar eventually if you want to bring in English. And they're probably the same with Bont to some degree. So Bont's lost 19k, break even of 158. He may lose a little bit more. So maybe there's more chance with Bont of being able to get him a little bit cheaper if you don't own him. But Bont and English are just captain choices every week. And then looking down, so Bramble's been an interesting surprise. Didn't expect him to do as well as he has. So he's gone up 55k. He's only 17 break even, owned by 7% of teams. So those ones who have got him, if you've got Bramble, you're pretty happy with how he's going. Look at his scores, 107, 84, 98. Just didn't expect that from Bramble. So that's great. Looks like he's got a good role and he will continue to put up these kinds of numbers, which is great. So then with Libba, he was subbed off at 3/4 time. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to watch this game. And that was, I was a little bit busy this weekend. So I caught some games, but I didn't get to catch this one. So I'm not too sure of the situation with Libba there, but he still scored a 98. Hopefully he's not injured for his owners. Harvey Gallagher, if you manage to start with him as a rookie, 89 points, that's pretty good. Same with Karmas, 82 points. If you start with him, they were both, I think, 123k rooks. Sanders, pretty happy with him. This is what can happen if Bevo just leaves him on the ground. So he ended up having, 77 in 72% game time. So that's pretty good. So he's making us cash. Negative 40 break even. He's made 51k. So you're pretty happy with that. Again, question is, do you bring him in if you don't have him? It's one of those things that depends on your structure and so forth. But I think he's one of those ones that, maybe you must have. Might fall in that. So Jack McRae. So he's another one that we just keep a little eye on. So he only scored a 59. So I think he's going to really bottom out. But I think the only way Jack McRae is going to get back to those, sort of 100 scores again, is if he's playing in the midfield. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Who knows? He may not even be at the Doggies by the end of the year. We're all hoping for a big score from Sam Darcy. So Darcy, because he had such a great game last week, 109 and 54 he got this week. So he's on a negative 92 break even. He's in 14% of teams already, and that's likely to increase. And it's probably fair to say that I might end up bringing in Darcy as well this week. I think maybe trade Clark, bring Wilson up to my midfield and trade Clark for Darcy. And then hopefully just cash in on that score that he got. The only thing is I'm worried about is just his job security. They may rest Darcy and maybe bring in Lob. That's the only thing I'm worried about with Darcy. I don't know how many games he'll play in a row. I mean, he only played 67% game time, 454 points. So the points per minute's pretty decent. But we'll just have to see with him. So with West Coast, pretty happy with Elliot Yeo. So that's 14k that he has made. His break even 73. So yeah, that's a 96, 110, 82. So how much money will we make from him? That's the question. He needs to put up a decent score in one of these scores, and hopefully he can crack that 500k mark. That would be great. But you know, he had 29 possessions. It's the only problem with Yo's score. Like, he scored an 82, but he lost 36 points in clangers, and he had 44% disposal efficiency. So can you imagine his score if that wasn't the case? And yeah, so he's got the role. He's playing well. He only had 66% game time though, which yeah is a little bit concerning. But 15 contested possessions, that's a good thing for him. Anyway, if you own him, 12% of teams own him. You're keeping an eye on him. Obviously, if you don't, you're definitely not looking at bringing him in. But if you own him, you're just keeping your eye on him to see how he goes. Harley Reid scored a 54. It still looks like it's going to be a slow burn with Harley Reid. He's scored now 78, 63, 54. Break even of 22. He's made 34k so far. I don't know how much money. It might be that, you know, we all thought that Harley Reid was going to be this big cash cow for us. He's in 80% of teams. We're just going to have to ride him out. Ride him out till he maxes out, and then just get rid of him as soon as he does, I think. And that's probably it for that game. Richmond and Sydney. With Richmond, you know, so Taranto showed up now. That's his first game where he's turned up. So that's a 128 from him. Sorry. No, I've got that wrong. I apologize for that. So he scored a 49 in his first game in round 0, but then it's a 105, 100, 128. I apologize for that because I haven't really looked into Taranto. I might have gotten confused with the fantasy scores. I don't know. Sorry about that. But his break even's 95. He's down to 563k now because he's lost 32k, but he gained 6k this week. But yeah, probably better options out there. Let's see. No one really else for Richmond. Thomas Dow spent a lot of time he had high CBAs, but scored an 80. And then yeah, Jaden Short a 60. This is the thing with Jaden Short. Everyone was talking about him. I said this in my my preseason videos. I just don't think he'll ever crack 100 as for an average for the season. He's always been in the 90s. Like that. I'll just see what he's averaging at the moment. So Jaden Short. So he's lost 57k now in total. He's averaging 85. I reckon that'll get to about 95, and that's what he'll finish at, like he has for the past few years. But yeah, no one really else that I can see. Seth Campbell, if you had him, only scored a 43. He's making a little bit of cash. But Isaac Heaney, moving on to Sydney. Man, what a start to a season. 144, 136, 128, 148. If you own him, wow, you're just hoping he doesn't get moved out of this midfield. You got Taylor Adams likely coming in this week. Hopefully it doesn't have too much of an impact on Heaney. Heaney's break even is 63, so you know, he should hopefully get that. And then the question is do we trade him at his bye in round 5? Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, because we're worried about these midfielders coming in. We'll get a bit of a taste of it this round with Adams likely coming in, because Adams actually had a decent VFL game. So he's probably coming in, and let's see the impact on Heaney's role. How much time does Heaney spend in the middle? Do they commit to Heaney being in the middle regardless of these midfielders coming back? So we just have to keep an eye on that. Grundy had a good game, 114. You're probably not looking at trading him out now. Or, well, at his bye, maybe. So he's now, let's see, Grundy. So he's 497k. He's made 15k now, and he's break even 72. So that's pretty decent considering if you maybe are going to trade him to Sherry at Grundy's buy. So Sherry's gone up 32k, break even of 54, and he's averaging 101. Or do you upgrade Grundy to an English or a Marshall if he bottoms out a bit more? So there's a few options there. Or you just hold him because it looks like Grundy may end up averaging around that 100 and 10 mark. So what's he averaging at the moment? He's averaging 105. So maybe he ends up averaging 105, 110 for the season. He ends up being a keeper. Matt Roberts, got to be happy with that. 98. Look at negative 28 break even. He's made 129K. That's the definition of an awesome cash cow. So we ride him right out and then just max until he maxes out, and then we just make the cash off him. Errol Goulden. So now we got to keep an eye on Goulden if we don't have him, particularly after the bye. So Goulden's lost because he's started well, Goulden. So especially with that 149. So the 77 in round 0, but then he's got a 109 and 149. So he's lost 17K overall. His break even's 124, which I think he could get. But if you don't own him, you just keep an eye to see. Maybe he drops in another low score, and maybe his price drops, and that's when we can sort of bring him in. James Jordan, a 65. He's averaging just under 80 for the season. He's made 69K overall. His break even's 44, so there's still some money to be made of him. And hopefully in round 5, when he has his bye, maybe that's the time to move him on and upgrade him or downgrade him. And then for the rest of Sydney's team, it's not really anyone else there. So quickly moving on to the last game of the round, which was today, Hawthorn and Geelong. And that was a really good game. The actual game itself was good for a little while until the Cats kicked away. But James Sicily, an 89. So he continues to just bottom out, but he had that 123 last week. So he's lost 50K now. He's 587K, break even of 124, which he could easily get. So the question is, do you bring him in at 587K? Is he worth it? I'm just not sure with his role, whether we bring him in now. Problem with Sicily's, that's the thing. He just out of nowhere, he'll just rip out a 150. So that's the gamble with Sicily. But I don't think I'll be bringing him in. I don't think. For Hawthorn, so D'Ambrosio, there would have been a lot that would have brought him in. Obviously, I brought him in a couple of weeks ago. And sorry, I'm just bringing him up here. So he's made 67, 68K overall. His break even's 13. So if you've brought him in, he's still a great cash cow. He's averaging 92. But in this game, he was okay. But the thing is that he was playing more wing than sort of half back, and so he didn't get a lot of the ball. Only a 68 from him. But he's got the job security. He'll still score well. Great cash cow, so you hold, obviously. And that's it. Henry Huswaite came in, but then subbed, so he didn't do that well. But for the Cats, Tom Stewart only scored a 99. He was everywhere, Tom Stewart. I just really thought that he would have scored more than that. But, if you're an owner, obviously you're still happy with having Stewart. He's averaging 112. Break even of 124. So if you're looking at bringing him in, you're hoping that he drops in price. Oliver Dempsey. So that's the one I'm really upset about, because my plan was to bring him in, and then I got caught up in being a bit reactionary. And so he's gone up 71K, negative 19 break even. Do you bring him in now? Are there other forwards that you don't have that's going to make a lot of money? Because Dempsey has a good role and he's got good job security. And so he's making really good cash. And he's got that role on the wing. So, yeah, want to think about if you don't have him. Toby Conway scored an 83. So Stanley was out. So I think he was just rested or managed. So he scored his price he's 180K, and he scored an 83, just playing exclusively in the ruck, and he had 18 hitouts, and he was their main ruckman. But he lost a few points as well. So he had 4 free kicks against him. So he lost 16 points there. And then he lost another 16 points in clangers. So that's 32 points. So he could have actually turned up. But what's his job security like? Because Stanley is still to come back in that team. But other than that, it would be a really good player to bring in if we knew he had the job security. So that's pretty much it. Jai Clark, was the other one. He scored a 68, which is decent from him. So that's now a 60 and a 68 in his last 2 games. So hopefully that trend continues. He made 32k, negative 39 break even. I actually was thinking of trading him out, but yeah, maybe I might hold him now because he's definitely got the role. He's playing in the middle. He's got the job security. As far as his CBAs go, he had 42% CBAs. So, it appears that Geelong is really sharing the CBAs around. And so at least he's getting that time in the midfield and getting the ball. I'm just a bit worried about him being rested or managed. But, I guess we'll kind of see about that. So, yeah, they're all the players to keep in mind, ones to keep an eye on, to trade out and to trade in. And so now we need to look forward to this upcoming week and my trades coming up. So I think for me, my plan from last week was to trade Clark for Sam Darcy. So Sam Darcy's got that really high break even, as I mentioned. I'm just worried about his job security. But the plan was to trade Clark to him. The other option is I could trade Sexton to him as well, because Sexton's doing okay, negative 5 break even, whereas Clark's got that negative 39 break even. Yeah, so I'm just deciding still on that. I may do Sexton or Clark. But the other one was, my other trade I was considering was, Clark to Sam Darcy and Sexton to Dempsey. I just really want to make the most of these rookies, the good rookies that are making cash. And then, of course, the big decision for me is, do I trade Rosie to Butters or Rosie to Steele? Or do I just not trade him at all? So having a look at some of these players with the high averages. So you've got Butters, who's averaging 130. Jack Steele's averaging 121. Steele's only 557k though. If I bring in Steele instead of Butters, I'm saving myself like 90k, which could come in handy later on. So I've got a few things to think about. It's still very early in the week. We'll see how things play out during the week with my trades. With my captain and vice captain, as I mentioned a bit earlier, because I've got, if all my rookies play, then all I've got is Livingston from West Coast as my loophole, and they play Saturday afternoon. So to be able to use that loophole, I'll probably VC Gawn, and I will go into Green or Heaney. Will likely be, even Sarong is an option as well. Against so Fremantle play Carlton at Adelaide Oval. So yeah, Sarong is an option, but looking at what Carlton did, the team tag to LDU, I think that they'll apply the same pressure to Sarong. So yeah, I might just hold off on that with the VC of Sarong. But Green's got Gold Coast I was saying at home for Fremantle, but yeah, of course I forgot it's gather round. So yeah, it's everyone's playing in Adelaide this week, so it's going to be awesome. It's going to be really exciting. So yeah, it won't really matter with Freo or with anyone playing at home unless you're Port Adelaide or an Adelaide Crow. So yeah, I think because it's a neutral ground, then that means Green has a great option there, playing against Gold Coast, and the same with, I was going to say Gawn, but then they're playing against Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. So yeah, a few options there. I think with all of the matches, you've got the Adelaide and Port Adelaide games because they're playing at home. You may want to take advantage of that. So maybe a Butters for Adelaide. You think of a Laird. And then maybe with some of the other games, if you're going to go Neil, You go Neil against North. And then, of course, with Sydney, you'd go a Heaney against West Coast. And then for Carlton and Fremantle, you would go the Sarong. But again, as I said, what they did to LDU wouldn't go Sarong. Of course, with Western Bulldogs against Geelong, you'd go English because they don't really have a ruckman, even with Stanley back. So you'd be jumping on English there. And, of course, Bont, the usuals. Gold Coast and GWS, well, maybe Miller from Gold Coast, and then Green, of course, from GWS. Richmond St Kilda, you probably do Jack Steele. Collingwood Hawthorn, maybe you'd go Dacos, but you'd have to wait and see if Finn McGuinness is named. So, yeah, that's my review and also trade options for round 4. Again, guys, lesson from this round for me is, you guys would have all done your research as well. Just, back your research, back your gut, stick with your plans, try and not be reactionary. Look, I think my trades will still work out well for me. Looking at my team, I'm pretty happy with how my team is looking at the moment. But, at the same time, I would have loved to have seen how my team would have gone if I'd stuck to my initial plans as well. So all the best for this upcoming week, guys, and enjoy the footy at the upcoming weekend, and hopefully your SuperCoach team does well. So thanks for watching or listening. Really appreciate it, and I'll catch you again soon.